If you like overlanding SUVs, good news, the newest generation of Land Cruiser and its Lexus counterpart look a whole lot more like the retro Land Cruisers than the past 2 generations, and I personally think they are cool as blank. This gen looks a lot less like something that your mom would look to pick up the kids from soccer practice, and a lot more like something that, wow, writers, you guys are wild, that a cartel leader would drive. It is said to resemble the best mix of the Bronco and Defender, and I tend to agree. In this fitment guide, we're going to show you that the wheels and tires really turn this platform into an off-roading monster. It's still very new. In fact, some wheel manufacturers, Graham Light, you, looking at you, have not gotten around to producing their product in the correct specs for these trucks. Compared with previous generations, the L250 has a redesigned suspension setup that uses a very high offset for a truck. We put together a collection of the best setups that are available right now, today, although more options will likely be coming in the following months or years, so expect this guide to potentially get updated at that point in time. If you're an early Land Cruiser owner, I'm sorry you get the short end of the stick here. As always, starting with the basics, bolt pattern 6 on 139.7, nut thread M14 by 1.5, centerboard 95.1 millimeters, and nut torque 96 foot-pounds. When you're buying aftermarket wheels, the most popular sizes are 18, a factory size, or 17, not a factory size, but will clear the brake calipers. Compared to 20s, these smaller diameters use a chunkier tire and will be far superior for off-roading, hopefully the reason you considered a Cruiser or GX 1958 edition versus the rest. The 1958, basically the base model of the Land Cruiser, comes with different fenders compared to the higher trims. The Land Cruiser and First Edition both come with fenders that are about 1 inch wider, meaning the 1958 will use a higher offset wheel to achieve a similar look to its counterparts, as if the fitment on these trucks was not confusing enough already. From the factory, the 58 gets weaker specs, 18 by 7.5 plus 70, 245, 70, 18, or plus 60, 265, 70, 18. We're going to run through all the factory wheel sizing: 58 LCFE, 20 by 7.5 plus 60, 265, 60, 20. As for the GX550, all models from the premium to the luxury to the overtrail all use the same body panels. All GX550 trims are equal in width to the LC and FE Land Cruisers. Can you run 35s on an L250? TLDR, the J250 has massive fender arches that can tuck some pretty big tires. From the factory, the 1958, call it 58 rest video, comes with 31.5 inch tires and the other get 32.6. We're finding out 35s aren't too difficult to fit, but might require some mods to prevent rubbing, as expected. Adding a leveling or lift kit will get you more clearance, that's obvious. However, you can get away with no lift and still stuff 35s, or like 34.6s, probably your flip better. You're going to need to do some minor modifications, plus get the correct offset of wheels. More on that later. These are complicated trucks, guys. They're new and it's not easy. So some mods for clearance. They're not mods at all because you're just removing stuff. Simply unbolt and unclip pieces that could be re-added later if needed, which is great because these are new and pretty expensive. The first things to go would be the mud flaps, crush brackets, and canards. You just unbolt them. If you need space, you could radius the back of the front fenders and trim the front bumper by a few inches, but again, it's a $55,000 truck in Toyota trim. I'm not cutting it up myself. Overall, this platform doesn't need anything like a Cali mod or a BME chop to fit 35s. Stock wheels, BFG KO2s, 275, 70, 18, stock wheels, stock suspension, stock, all that jazz. This is kind of your baseline, and we needed to show you this. A lot of people like to round the stock 265 70s up to 33, even they're a bit under 32.6 inch. This is what real 33s look like on a J250 with stock wheels. It's not much, but it's something. There is plenty of clearance, no trimming, no removal, no nothing. We wanted to show you this truck just to give you a baseline of what you can slap on out of the box. KO2s are an all-terrain everyone likes. Toyos that come on it, less people tend to like. We've got all the KO2s on our website. You can get them at the link down below. From this point on, all the other examples are going to be aftermarket wheels. We got to give you guys a baseline here. First up, 1552 off-road analog HD 17 by 8 plus 25, 285 70 17 Falcon Rubitrek AT tires, Land Cruiser trim, no rubbing. This one answers the question of will 17s work on a Land Cruiser 250? Absolutely, and they might be the most popular size of aftermarket wheels. This Land Cruiser is on 1552 off-road analog HD wheels. You'll notice the offset is significantly more aggressive than stock, but still not like the older generations or literally every truck ever made. This will give you some poke at resting height, but when the suspension articulates, when there's some travel, the wheels will tuck into the fenders so you don't have to sweat rubbing on trail. If you have a 1958 trim, be sure to add 10 to 15 to the offset if you aim to copy this fitment. Remember, they run higher offset. Next up, Titan TAK1 18 by 8.5 plus 20 Yokohama Geolandar MT 295/70/18 tires. This is a first edition trim. The front and rear mud flaps have been removed, and of course, downsizing to 17s is popular, but if you want to stay with 18s, that is no problem either. We tend to sell more 18s than we do 17s. Some argue 18s suit this platform better anyway for more like a street use. 17s are better for like hardcore off-roading. This is a GX, so these wheels will look the same on a Land Cruiser or first edition, everything except the 1958 trim. Hate to beat a dead horse, but there you go. These tires are around 34 inches, making them larger than the last example, but still easy enough to fit, and personally what I'd recommend over a full 35. This setup works at stock 35 with no modification, only the mud flaps had to go, which just do that anyway, realistically. Next up, one of the coolest new wheels on the market you guys are sleeping on, Workmeister S1 SUV, 18x9+18, Nitto Recon Grappler 285/70/18 tires. This one is on a GX550 again, there's no rubbing issues, the mud flaps and the crash guards have been removed. The Meister S1 SUV are offered in a good spec for the Land Cruiser if you like 18s. These are slightly wider wheels with a lower offset, which will give a bit more poke, but still nothing absurd for stock height. Keep in mind this is a GX550, the 1958 might have rubbing issues when the suspension is compressed, and some adjustment to the alignment might solve this. As far as tires, these are less than 34 inches, so fitment is very straightforward. Only the mud flaps were taken off of this GX as well as that crash delete thing. You know we had to put it on the list. T37XT M-Spec 18x9+0 Toyo Open Country RT Trails 285/65/18, same in the rear. It's an all-wheel drive truck, expect square all around. GX550, minor rubbing in the front, canards, crash guards, and mud flaps all removed. These are, as I said, T37XT M-Spec, specifically designed for off-road use. With a zero offset, we can see a decent amount of poke, and these are kind of outside of what we would recommend for a Land Cruiser. The aggressive offset does result in minor rubbing. Nothing that couldn't be remedied with a bit of fender work, but if you call us and you're like, yo, I want to buy wheels, we're not going to recommend you these. If you own a 58, or if you want to avoid trimming, check out the higher 15 offset option, or just check out the entire lineup on our website. Now, we got the American boys in the mix, Fuel Nitro 17.5 -12 BFG AT 285/70/17 tires. This is a first edition truck, tough country 1.5 inch leveling kit, no rubbing. Poke on an off-road rig should always be proportional to lift. If you want to go with a zero offset or less, it is best to add a lift or at least a leveling kit. 1 inch of lift, 1 inch of poke, that's the rule. This 2024 first edition has a 1.5 inch leveling kit from Tough Country, which makes the negative offset fuel wheels look a whole lot better than if it had the stock rake. Is this too much poke? You be the judge, it's not our truck. In our opinion, wheels around zero offset would pair best with the leveling kit, while negative offset should be reserved for a lifted rig. However, it looks good. If you want aggressive fitment, bear in mind, more poke equals less clearance. Even with tires around factory size, being 33 inch, the shoulder of the tires will come close to the fenders when turning or off-roading. Let's look at some 35s and stock suspension. Method MRW 316 17x8+25 Toyo Open Country 351250 R17s. This is a 2024 Land Cruiser 1958 trim. Front and rear mud flaps are removed, front canards are removed, crash bracket removed, fender liners inverted, and probably some other stuff too to fit 35s. They should be doable for any cruiser or GX owner, however it will require modification. The work is mild in the world of custom 4x4 builds, but extensive on a new truck. You can make it easier if you raise the front, you can do it at stock height. Again, it's how comfortable you are with cutting and rubbing and all that stuff. This one's on stock suspension and only needed, again, minor in our eyes, might not be minor in yours, to fit 35s. Mud flaps, canards, and crash bracket were removed. Otherwise, it only needed a heat gun taken to the plastic fender liners to massage them. Wheel offset being key, the owner notes zero offset wheels with the same tires did not fit. These methods are 17x8+25, which is perfect for 1958. You could use a +10 to 20 on other trims, which have a lower offset. If you don't want people to call your L250, a Rivian, an aggressive set of wheels and tires helps with that. In this guide, we went over everything from a simple tire upgrade to stuffing 35s on stock suspension. This platform is super cool and it has a lot of potential. Lift kits and leveling kits exist, but most of these rigs are still at stock height for the time being. In the coming years, we anticipate a lot more aftermarket support, from metal bumpers to running boards to all the other stuff you can expect on any truck ever. These are super, super rad, so if you have one, be sure to add it to our vehicle gallery to show it off to others and help them dial in their fitment. If you have a new Land Cruiser, we seem to be the authority on these ones, so hit us up. Let's get you some wheels. Click the link down below in the description. You can get some wheels for your new Land Cruiser. If you like the video, drop a comment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, let us know what car we should do next, and I will see you in the next one.